Hello and welcome back to my channel. Jacob Payton here, and I'm going to be talking about the Chronicles of Hanuvar by Howard Andrew Jones, and this is the first book, Lord of a Shattered Land. The Dervan Empire has at last triumphed over Volanus, putting the great city to the torch, its treasures looted, temples defiled, and fields sown with salt. What little remains of Volanus is scattered across the empire, its treasures plundered and its survivors sold into slavery. It is an absolute victory for the Dervans in every way but one. Hanuvar, last and greatest general of Volanus, still lives. He now travels the length of the Dervan Empire, which conquered his homeland, driven by a singular purpose, to find what remains of his people, who were carried into slavery across the empire, and free them from subjugation by any means necessary. Against the might of a vast empire, he had only an aging sword arm, a lifetime of hard-won wisdom, and the greatest military mind in the world, set upon a single goal. No matter what the empire musters against him, no matter what man or monster stands in his way, from the empire's festering capital to its furthest outpost, Hanuvar would find his people, every last one of them, and he would set them free. So this is a pretty interesting book. It's kind of, the whole book is essentially a series of, I'm not going to really call them short stories because they're pretty long. They're more like, it's like more like a collection of novellas. Each one being a story of Hanuvar's travels as he goes around, coming into contact with both lost or enslaved people of Volantis, or even just old enemies that he ends up having to deal with from back when he was a general. Now this is a little different, I think, than more traditional sword and sorcery, because while he is an amazing warrior, a lot of his prowess isn't so much, how he is one-on-one. It was the fact that he was a general. He's basically Hannibal, who, this is where I'm going to really mess up my history, because I don't know if you guys see the memes, but the men that think about ancient Rome all the time, I don't. I think about Napoleon. So this is where I'm going to really mess up, because I do believe Hannibal was the one that came from Carthage and had a bunch of war elephants, as elephants are mentioned in this book and are shown that while he didn't lead war elephants, his brother did. He ended up riding a dragon. That's a minor spoiler because it is said in the beginning. And that, of course, is a big difference between this being some sort of historical fantasy, because magic and dragons and all that does exist, and we do get snippets of how that works in this world. Even though magic, I feel like I like the way that Howard Andrew Jones describes magic in Volanus, because it's very much in the way that it's described in Conan. And what I mean by that is, like, we don't have definite rules. We just know that it usually demands some sort of sacrifice, and that people that do it tend to be a little crazy. And so I very much like that. I think that's kind of how, like, most sword and sorcery books play out. Magic is kind of like the weird other that usually our sword wielding heroes have to encounter. Another thing that I thought was interesting, that I definitely think separates Hanuvar from even like a Kagan the Damned, which is another sword and sorcery series that has come out this year, is that he is disguised a lot of times as he travels the empire. He's not, kicking down doors with bluster and gusto, and he's very much not a Conan. While he is strong and he is willing to, like, fight when he has to, he's also fine with being a little more subtle. Kagan definitely does that too, but I think Kagan also falls into, and I've talked about this in some of the Kagan the Damned stuff, but Kagan also is very much a hothead in the way that Conan is, right? He'll give into anger or, emotions, and luckily he's a very skilled fighter, because it does get him into trouble from time to time. Hanuvar, on the other hand, he doesn't really let his emotions slip like that. He's older too, which I think plays into it as well. This is a man who was a great general. His enemies at this point are mentioned having grandchildren. He has an adult daughter that he's searching for. And I don't want to give too many spoilers. Like I said, a lot of this is all mentioned in the very beginning. One thing I did want to talk about is the fact that I love this format. I don't know if it's going to be for everybody, but I love the fact that it was broken up into a bunch of novellas, because I think it retained like that pulp feel that I love about reading Sword and Sorcery, and also just the fact that we get more of the world building through like a very filtered lens, because it's literally told from these small confined stories instead of these big information dumps that I think would have had to have happened if it was told differently. So I did really appreciate that. I also appreciate that the people he gets paired up with in this book, I don't want to spoil it, but because Hanuvar is a very serious character, I like that he's constantly kind of paired up with people that give him a little levity. Because if not, I mean, it would have been depressing, right? He's a guy that's lost everything. His people are in slavery. His country doesn't even exist anymore, right? His country was literally put to the torch, old school Roman type of like salt the earth on the way out, burn everything. Everything's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So it would have been very grimdark if it was only Hanuvar going through all of these trials and tribulations and everything. So I do like the fact that he is constantly paired with people that kind of give him a little more levity. Because like I said, he's not a hothead. He's not a drunkard like Conan. He's not looking for a woman in every town. So, there's not as many opportunities for him to be in funny situations and to break up some of the bad things that are happening. I really enjoyed this book. If you can't tell from this review, I am excited to see, what direction the story is going to take as he goes deeper into the Dervan Empire. Is it going to end with him just freeing all of his people, or is there going to be some revenge against the Empire itself? When we do, like I said, we do get snippets. We don't get everything all at once, and it is kind of hinted that perhaps there's more to the story of the last war than we know. And I'm not going to give any spoilers to that, because once again, this book doesn't give us everything. The stories are very self-contained, so we do get an ending to each story, but the bigger plot, it's still kind of up in the air. The second book comes out, I do believe, in October. I'm pretty sure I already have it on order at the library. If not, I am gonna definitely do that myself here soon, because I'm excited to see, like I said, where the story goes. I love the fact that Sword and Sorcery is making such a strong comeback, and I could definitely see, books like series like Hanuvar, the Chronicles of Hanuvar, and the Cake and the Dam stories bringing in a new set of readers, because both of them are 100% Sword and Sorcery, but also are just kind of telling big stories in little pieces, if that makes sense. I've talked about the fact that Cake and the Dam is kind of very broken up in the way that it's written, and I appreciate that. And I really like this as well. Like I said, the novella format I think really fits. I did a review not too long ago about Goblin by Josh Malerman, which is a collection of like 6 novellas that kind of tell the story of this town, and it works really well in horror, but it works amazing in Sword and Sorcery. And I'm kind of wondering if we start seeing some more and more, if Bane and I think St. Martin's Press put out Kagan, but anyway, if we do see the bigger publishers make more of a commitment and start putting out more and more Sword and Sorcery, if this is the kind of format we're going to get it in. If so, I'm here for it. I think it works really well. I am curious to see, as maybe the story of Hanuvar especially gets a little more epic in scope, if it's gonna stay collections of novellas, or if it's gonna be like The Witcher, where it starts off as collections of short stories and novellas, and then by like book 3 and 4 are just full on regular kind of more of that regular novel format that we're all used to. But that's just me wildly speculating. I mean, once again, we're only on the first book, so who knows what direction the story is going to take us in. I am very excited to kind of see Hanuvar go from kind of like this, I don't want to say murder hobo, he's not very much of a murder hobo, but kind of like this adventurer that's going through and solving these like very condensed quest lines to maybe go back into leading people again. I think we definitely get a taste of that, and it very much makes it clear that while he is very nice and kind, as the world allows him to be when dealing with people, that he could be a very cold and calculating enemy when it comes to leading troops. And that is definitely something I would love to see, because, you know, when it comes to like the violence and stuff like that, like I said, there is a lot of levity, but also Howard Andrew Jones can write a hell of a fight scene. And when Hanuvar starts swinging swords, he does not hold back. I do think, you know, we also get a lot of that good cosmic horror feel that Sword and Sorcery gets in a couple of these stories, which I really enjoyed. Like I said, Howard Andrew Jones is taking no prisoners with a lot of these stories, right? He's not afraid of gore. He's not afraid of cosmic horror elements. One thing I also enjoyed that I think really gave it that episodic feel in terms of the novellas is that there are various times where characters from previous stories make a comeback. And I mean, I understand that we are reading a full book, right? It is a novel, but it's broken up into novellas. But I do think it makes it kind of fun. I don't know. I enjoyed that. It almost feels like this could be serialized, and I think that's probably definitely something he went for when writing this. I mean, that's how Conan was written when Robert E. Howard was writing Conan, and we definitely get this feel. But also, Hanuvar is very much his own, like I said, his own character. He's not a Clonan or Conan clone, as they're called. He's very different, but also very familiar, and I really appreciated that. And I think a lot of, you know, I might just be talking up my ass here, but I think a lot of Sword and Sorcery fans are going to enjoy this too. Like I said, I'm excited for the next one. If you're a fan of Sword and Sorcery, or you've been looking to give Sword and Sorcery a try, maybe you're an epic fantasy, or maybe you're not even that much of a fantasy reader. Maybe you're a science fiction or a horror reader and you watch my channel because I talk about those as well, and you're looking to dip your toe in Sword and Sorcery. I definitely think this is a really good step. And I think this is a great introduction to Sword and Sorcery. And I'm going to go a step further, where I think if you don't read a lot of grimdark stuff, or you don't really like dark fantasy, so to speak, but maybe you are familiar with like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, I think this is a great first step, even over Kagan, because as much as I love Kagan and I love Jonathan Mayberry, you know, he does write a lot of horror. He writes these very dark worlds, and Kagan the Damned is very grimdark, right? It's a very grimdark Sword and Sorcery. And what I mean by that is there's violence, there's sexual violence, there's a lot of stuff happening in this world that we don't get shoved in our face as much as in the Chronicles of Hanuvar, which, you know, we're talking about people enslaved and plundered cities, so there are plenty of chances if that was something the author wanted to do. But I also appreciate, you know, his restraint in that. Because once again, I love that we can I like having series that do different things. You know what I mean? I read Joe Abercrombie for Joe Abercrombie, but I also read Brandon Sanderson for Brandon Sanderson. And what I mean by that is, like, they're both very different types of stories and very different types of storytellers. Sometimes I like grimdark. Sometimes I want something that I get that, you know, I get to see a hero win at the end of the day, but I don't also need to watch him carry that much baggage, if that checks out. So yeah, I enjoyed this book a lot. I think it has a lot to offer. I'm excited to see where the series goes. If you've, you know, been on the fence about reading this for whatever reason, or you've heard about it and weren't too sure, or you just want to get started with Sword and Sorcery, and I mean, this is on store shelves, right? You don't have to sort through old Conan paperbacks at a secondhand store, or, you know, read a Robert E. Howard collection. You can just start reading this today, which I think is awesome. And like I said, I'm excited to see more Sword and Sorcery. It definitely seems like, I think Bane contracted him for this whole series. I don't know how many books that is. I swear I heard it on a podcast, and you know, I don't remember. I probably should have wrote it down before I did this episode, this video. But you know, either way, it just shows a big commitment from a big publisher into sword and sorcery, and I'm definitely excited to see where that goes. Read this book. It's very good. You know, I don't know. I like to think you guys listen to my opinion sometimes when it comes to books, and I definitely think this is one. Like, if you don't read anything else I talk about on this channel, give this a try. I think, you know, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see where it goes. If you've read this, haven't read this, or you read it, liked it, didn't like it, let me know in the comments below. Let me know of any other new sword and sorcery books that, you know that are coming out that maybe I might not be following, or even some good, you know, self-published ones. I'm always looking for new indie authors to read as well. I have a whole back catalog of indie books I need to review on this channel. Another thing to keep an eye out for, I am planning to read all of the Conan heroic, I think it's just like heroic tales that are coming out. There are a bunch of shorts from a lot of big name authors that follow, you know, Conan. We're seeing a lot of Conan content. So if you do like the Chronicles of Hanuvar and you read this, definitely stay tuned, because I'm going to be talking about a lot of the new Conan stuff. I'm going to do a review of the comics soon. I'm going to do a review of the shorts, and I've got the new book that's coming out. I don't know if it comes out this year or next year, but it's the second Titan release in the Conan universe that takes place in between, you know, the known stories of Robert E. Howard. I've already done a review of Blood of the Serpent, I think it was called. Let me look behind me. Yep, Blood of the Serpent by S.M. Sterling. I did that review earlier in the year, and I enjoyed that a lot. So like I said, if you do like sword and sorcery, definitely stay tuned. I plan on reading and talking about a lot of it. I love sword and sorcery. I would probably say I do love science fiction, but sword and sorcery and horror, that's just always where my heart is. I got into fantasy through sword and sorcery. And as much as I love fantasy, that sometimes, you know, sometimes it's too much. Sometimes I just want a guy swinging a sword doing a thing. But yeah, sorry this video went on so long. Read this book. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.